Welcome to the Coffee Snobs Podcast, where we just really love good coffee.
So grab your cup of coffee and join us each episode as we explore any and everything coffee related.
From pour-overs to lattes to the coffee experience. We explore it all because life is too short to drink bad coffee. Here we go. Welcome to the first Coffee Snobs Podcast. My name is Aaron. We have Tyler here. We also have Chad, who is remoting in. I know. So we're all fancy on our first episode. And you're probably wondering, with the title Coffee Snobs, we're a bunch of hoity-toity, fingers pointed up. Pretentious. And that is not at all. That is by far the farthest thing from us. We just really love coffee. You heard it in the beginning, life is too short to drink bad coffee. And that come from the Wired Man Coffee in North Wilkesboro. My good friend Dallas owns the shop, and he just said life is too short to drink bad coffee, and it really is. I think most people are drinking bad coffee, and for years I drank bad coffee. What about you?
Absolutely. I honestly, I probably didn't start drinking really good coffee until just the past few years. So,
I mean, coffee, millions of people drink terrible coffee every day. And I think a lot of people drink it for the caffeine, right? They're just looking for the kick, and they really don't enjoy coffee.
Exactly. Like most people say they enjoy coffee, but they really don't. They pour tons of cream and sugar into that black tar stuff just so it wakes them up every morning. It's more of a habit than actually enjoying it.
Yeah. And I think that's where we've gotten, and that's why we're called the Coffee Snobs Podcast, because I think when you care as much as we do, you kind of take the word coffee snob as a badge of honor. Like, anybody that cares enough to weigh out their coffee, to get their water to a certain temp, you kind of are a coffee snob. And it's like what the term nerd was back in the day.
You know, when the term nerd and geek originated in probably the 70s and 80s, it was almost like a derogatory term for computer enthusiasts, essentially. Yeah. But, you know, computers are everywhere nowadays, so the term nerd or geek is actually like a badge of honor. So we want to, not have the negative connotation of snob as, like we said, a pretentious person, but somebody who just basically cares enough to... Yeah,
we feel like we're ahead of the curve. Like, I honestly think that coffee will take the form of what wine is now, where you really go to a place that really has perfected the art of either pour over or siphon or any unique coffee technique, and really you're willing to pay a premium for a very good cup of coffee, something that tastes really good.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we'll probably discuss in a future episode as far as like coffee waves.
Yeah.
The current status is, you see a lot more locally owned independent coffee shops popping up.
Yeah, boutique
stuff. So
yeah,
something we'll discuss at a later
point. That kind of lays out the Coffee Snob, our title of this episode of this podcast. But we've got a structure of each show, how they're going to go. And so we just want you to join in on our journey as we explore how we can produce the best cup of coffee with a little bit of time and required, but something that you can do each morning. So first off, Tyler, what are you drinking currently?
Currently I am drinking Huckleberry Roasters. It's a...
Where are they from?
They are in Denver, Colorado, and it's really, really good stuff.
It is very, very good stuff.
Very good. I've been using that mainly just like an espresso. So making espressos every day at home.
Is that like just coffee and water espresso, or are you lattes using your espresso shot for a latte?
Most mornings I start off with a latte, and then I'll also drink an Americano a lot of times. So
if you don't know what a latte is, we if you haven't gotten there yet, it's essentially a
espresso,
2 ounces of espresso from a shot or a single shot of espresso in a espresso machine. That would be 17 to 19 grams. This is where we get the Coffee Snob because we really love data. But essentially, it's coffee and milk and then syrup if it's a flavored latte.
Yep.
And then Americano.
Americano is just hot water and espresso.
Yeah. So the Huckleberry Phantom Limb is the blend that's out right now, but we have just heard that
discontinued.
No
I think
longer
it's a
available.
seasonal blend, so I don't know if it'll probably come back. But
so seriously, if you get a chance and you're in the Denver area, be sure to check them out. They're really good. I am currently drinking Sunnergrass, and this kind of leads us into our next segment because we're talking about how we got into coffee.
Yeah, so the main topic of today's show is simply, what is coffee to you?
Yeah.
And let's hear a little bit about your coffee journey.
Yeah, so my coffee journey started in Louisville, Kentucky, and it started...
How many years ago?
Oh, man. I think that's 12 years ago now. Wow. Let's see, my son is... Yeah, so no, it's going on 12 years, yeah, because it was before he was born. So every Saturday morning, at this moment, 12 years ago, I did not drink coffee. Did not. It didn't just, I think to start out as an acquired taste, right? So you're looking for the effect of caffeine to get you up and going. And mine just happened to be a group of guys that met at Sunnergrass Coffee Shop in Louisville, Kentucky. And the great thing about it was there's a bakery, Nord's Bakery, beside it. And so I would get a red eye because...
What's a red eye?
Red eye is brewed coffee and then a double shot of espresso in brewed coffee. Wow. Yeah, so it was a punch in the throat every morning. And that was kind of my coffee journey. Now, that is the extreme coffee journey because brewed black coffee, not the sweetest drink. And then espresso on top of it, also another bitter, if not done properly. So two very acidic beverages.
Did you just enjoy the taste, or were you more so doing it just for the caffeine?
Actually, what I did is I would go next door to the bakery and get a French fry, which is a donut twist, deep fried with sugar on top, and
extra healthy.
Oh my God, it was so healthy. And I would dip it in the red eye and eat the donut while the coffee cooled.
Sure. Most coffee shops you go to will have some form of bakery there. So something about bakeries and coffee just really pair well together.
Seriously, if it's a great business strategy, honestly, because people will consume more coffee, and so I would dip it, and while I would eat my French fry, I would. Which I actually think it's called a French twist, maybe. It may be not a French fry. It may be. Well, no, it was a French fry because it was fried. Okay, but
like a McDonald's fry?
No.
The Wendy's Blizzard?
No. So I would, by the time that I would finish the French fry, it would be cool enough to drink the coffee, and it would already be sweetened because I was dipping the donut in it.
Like the cop thing,
exactly.
Cops and donuts.
Exactly. And so that is how that was my coffee journey, and we did it quite often, and it was led by my good friend Joe Strothman, who is another coffee snob in Louisville, Kentucky. But that was my journey, and
so you started drinking coffee at Sunnergrass.
Yep.
And then were you making it at home at that time, or?
I think everybody's journey leads through a Mr. Coffee or a Keurig, and we all did it. We all did it, and not that the Mr. Coffee or Keurig is bad, but it kind of led me through that journey, and then, after probably like 8 years of that, I then got a espresso machine, and I went all in, and I didn't even have a pour over. I had a French press. I had like 2 French presses, but I only used them for camping. So I didn't use them at the house. I just used them,
So you were buying pre-ground coffee at the time?
Buying pre-ground K-cups and putting them into the Keurig and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
And that was
a wing and a prayer.
A wing and a prayer. And I know that sounds snobbish, and it's not. I think the problem is the coffee to water ratio is really where you get a good cup of coffee. Like if you're trying to produce a good cup of coffee, water to coffee ratio with a Mr. Coffee, normally you just pour in,
Exactly.
a massive amount of Folgers and a massive amount of water, hoping for the best that comes in the bottom, or K-Cup. You're hoping that the K-Cup is filled with an accurate amount of coffee, and then you got 3 different levels, and all those levels are different amounts of water. And so I think that was the journey, and now I record all of my data when it comes to
That's
coffee.
quite an acceleration.
It is.
So,
what about you?
well, my coffee journey, kind of like you, honestly, I'm in my 30s, and I didn't start drinking coffee consistently until probably my girls were born, and they're 6 years old.
Yeah.
So, I remember as a child, my parents having the coffee mug in the house in the morning, and I would sample occasionally some black coffee, and I'm like, what is this stuff? It's gross, but it's just something I really remember, my parents, my grandparents seeming to enjoy, especially like after a meal or if we would go out somewhere. And, honestly, just didn't give it much thought. So then when I was, 18, 19, went to college, there was a Starbucks a couple blocks from my dorm, and would occasionally go there with people, and that's when Starbucks was new and, exotic to me.
Thing,
so...
yeah.
You get essentially the dessert drinks. What do they call them? The frappuccinos, or some of their lattes, which are super, super sugary in hindsight. So would go occasionally, like from a social thing, but, never made coffee in my dorm or anything like that. Didn't really truly enjoy it.
Yeah.
So after that, a couple years later, got married. And like everybody, I think put, a Keurig on the registry, because I was like, man, this is cool and it's easy. And it's convenient, because at the time, my wife, same thing. She didn't really drink as much coffee. So had the Keurig, and like, man, this is cool, and just didn't really think much about it. Would occasionally have coffee, like if people came over, I would just put a bunch of creamers in there from the grocery store, the Oreo flavor and all that, junk. So yeah, and then when I started working the night shift, when I was a new nurse, would essentially just go for anything hot and caffeinated to try to stay up.
Yeah.
So from that point, young parenthood, you're not getting much sleep, all that stuff. It's basically just having some K-Cups at the house and popping those in when you felt tired or something like that. And then a couple years ago, I think around my wife's birthday, made the jump to pour over.
Yeah.
So, this is cool. So I bought a little V60, which is like a single use pour over, super simple. You just put it over your coffee mug, brew the water up. Well, I made it the first time. I actually remember I got hot water from the Keurig, and I had some coffee grounds that I had bought from the store, and I poured the water over it, and it ran down. And a few minutes later, I tasted it, and I was like, this tastes like crap. What am I doing? And honestly, I didn't even, I just kind of put it in the back of the cabinet for a while. Didn't even do any research as far as how to like truly do a better pour over.
Yeah.
Like that. So then, we would go to friends' house a lot that would do pour overs. We would meet a lot of times on Sunday evenings. Started really enjoying that fresh ground coffee and the pour overs more. So I got us a simple setup, a
Kettle
and a Bodum, which is kind of like a cheaper version of a Chemex. Just so you can make 4 to 6 cups of coffee at one time.
Yep.
And started using pre-ground beans and watched some YouTube videos and learned that you have to, do a pour over very slowly so that the coffee blooms and you're drawing out the flavors of the coffee. And kind of just turned into, this is good, and it's not too much trouble that, during the week when we're working, I could still get up relatively quickly make a fresh cup of pour over, and started enjoying that. But like I said, I remember a long time ago thinking Starbucks was good. Like, I'll admit it, I occasionally would get the pumpkin spice latte in the fall, and I'm like, ooh, I'm basic. I have a sweet tooth, so I like the sugar aspect of that. And I used to just, think Starbucks was good stuff.
Right.
Then, I don't remember even when it was, but remember going to Not Just Coffee in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yep.
The 7th Street station. It's not far from the Spectrum Center, which is where the Charlotte Hornets play. And me and my wife both got a latte, and it was just like mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's a total different experience.
So much better than anything I had ever had.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do I get this more often? Started looking around. There's not any really good coffee shops where I live. Charlotte's not too far away, but it wasn't something I could go to get coffee all the time. So that kind of piqued my interest really in seeing how really well-made coffee could be.
Yeah.
And then I got an espresso machine for a Christmas gift, and a scale to weigh my beans, and journeyed down the rabbit hole as far as, getting a coffee grinder and whatnot. And from there, just been a lot more interested in trying fresh whole bean coffee from different roasters, and just kind of experimenting. So.
Yeah. So real quick, I know that us describing our coffee journeys really kind of, I really, the coffee snobs, I don't want it to come up like we don't like the big box coffee stores. I am very appreciative of them, because
Absolutely,
I think they've ushered in a total different era that I don't think, like, back in the day, I know for a fact our parents wouldn't pay $4, $5 for a latte at all,
not,
right?
no.
So like, I know, even though we had this conversation with my grandfather, if he's not paying 49 cents for a cup in the senior discount
at Hardee's,
right, dude, he is like furious, right? So, he doesn't understand it. I fully agree. I fully understand, but I think he came up in a different era, which we'll talk about this later in a different podcast, of, Starbucks, what they ushered in. They kind of laid the platform for coffee snobs. I mean, honestly, people that care about coffee.
They brought coffee to the masses.
Yeah.
That wasn't just freeze-dried Folgers.
Right. Something that's been pre-ground for years, and let's just move it off the shelf. So we're going to kick it to our other guy, Chad, who is not here at location, but Chad is far beyond us in the coffee snob world. He is beyond. So, Chad, tell us about your coffee experience. So, as you can see, Chad he sets the bar for
high snobbery.
High snobbery, only because he has a podcast called the Coffee Break Podcast, where he has, very interesting businessmen and women that are been successful or are very intentional in what they're doing, and it's all wrapped around coffee. And so if you've ever made it to LocDoc, they have a very nice commercial machine, as well as now they have their own coffee roaster labeled LocDoc from a local roaster in
big time.
Yeah, they are big time. So we're very excited to have Chad on this podcast as well, and we'll be sitting around a table here shortly, us three. But we love to give you a takeaway each episode, because we know that life is too short to drink bad coffee. So Tyler, what would you tell someone that is interested in producing a better cup of coffee? What would you tell them?
My advice is, coffee is pretty simple when you think about it. Coffee is beans and water, and that's pretty much it. Two things, coffee and water. So if you do nothing more than weigh or measure how much coffee you're using with how much water you're using, and whatever brewing method you choose, pour over, etc. And when you can, try to use fresh beans. That is going to yield a much better cup of coffee than buying, pre-ground year-old beans that you might find on your average grocery store shelf.
So are you saying buying whole beans at the grocery store and then using their grinder? Or are you saying...
Yeah, obviously that, yes. When you can, anytime you get a chance to buy whole beans and grind it, that's going to yield the freshest coffee. That might require a little bit of a purchase of a grinder, which you can find some inexpensive ones. But yeah, whole bean coffee will always be superior to pre-ground coffee because you have no idea how old it is.
Yeah. So with that, I will give you, because I am the data junkie. I record all of my data. I know how warm my water is and all of that. But if you're trying to find a good ratio, I would start with the 16.5 to 1 ratio.
Now, is that for a pour over?
I'm going to say start there. I know we can get nitty gritty and the numbers can change versus the type of process that you're doing to produce coffee, but I would just say start with 16.5 to 1. So that is for every gram of coffee, you're using 16.5 grams of water.
Yep.
So for instance, just to give you another ratio, if you're using 10 grams of coffee, you're producing 165 grams of coffee water, right?
Yep.
Okay. So you're putting 165 grams of water through, or you're yielding 165 grams of coffee in a cup. And so for me, recording the data, like you said at the beginning, that is how to produce a better cup of coffee. Because then you can start to realize, okay, that wasn't that good, right?
Sure.
And so then you can start tweaking it. And so with that, we thank you for joining this week's podcast. We are producing a show every week, and
We are?
Yeah, we are. It's going to be good.
Gonna be all in then.
It is. We're all in. I mean,
Yeah.
It's going to be
Thanks for
be
joining
blessed.
us on our very first episode.
Yeah. So we love your feedback. Leave us a comment, like and share, subscribe on iTunes. How else can, YouTube, she's Instagram.
Yeah, reach out to us on social media. We got a lot of things in the works. We'll have a website,
Yep.
YouTube channel, podcast will be available from any platform you choose to listen to.
Yep.
And just reach out. We love having feedback, and hopefully we can have some questions that we might be able to answer.
Yeah.
And if we don't know the answer, then we can do some research and we can all learn something.
Sounds good. So my name is Aaron.
This is Tyler.
And
join us next time, episode 2,
Yep.
where the main topic will be how to make better coffee at home.
Yep. Adios.
Till next time.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully we helped you take your coffee experience to the next level. Listen and watch with us every Monday as we explore everything coffee. You can find us on all major podcast platforms, and we would appreciate if you could subscribe and review on iTunes. Check out all of our video content on our YouTube channel, and you can connect with us by reaching out on social media and the web or YouTube. Thanks so much. We will see you again next time.